Transportation Technology Solution, DIMTS. Mr. Alok Sethi, warm welcome. Inviting Dr. Sumit D. Chaudhary, Founder, Chairman and MD, Gaia Smart Cities. Inviting Mr. Nilesh Kelkar, Vice President, Emerging Business and Smart City Indus Towers Limited. Inviting Mr. Mohan Raju, Vice President and Business Head, Smart Mobility Geo Platforms. And also inviting Dr. Chinmay Hegde, Managing Director, Astricos Consulting Private Limited. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, for the panel discussion session on a deep dive into the future of mobility and smart cities with 5G. May I invite our eminent keynote speaker and moderator for this session, Mr. Dinesh Chand Sharma, Director, Standards and Public Policy, SESI. Warm welcome to you, sir. Inviting Mr. Alok Sethi, General Manager, Transportation Technology Solution, DIMTS. May I also invite Dr. Sumit Chaudhary and Dr. Chinmay Hegde to kindly join us on the panel. Also requesting all our delegates, guests to kindly take their seats and be seated as soon as possible. May I request everybody to kindly be seated, please? So we have our panelists on the stage. I would request everyone to kindly take seats. Session, and we have our eminent panelists on the stage. May I request everybody to be seated, please? The theme is a deep dive into the future of mobility and smart cities with 5G. The session will be chaired and moderated by Mr. Dinesh Chand Sharma, Director, Standards and Public Policy, SESI. Our eminent panelists are Shri Sudhendu J. Sinha, Advisor, Infrastructure, Connectivity and Electric Mobility from Niti Aayog. Mr. Alok Sethi, General Manager, Transportation and Technology Solution, DIMTS. Dr. Sunil D. Chaudhary, Founder and Chairman and MD, Gaia Smart Cities. Mr. Nilesh Kelkar, Vice President, Emerging Business and Smart City Indus Towers Limited. And Mr. Mohan Raju, Vice President, Business Head, Smart Mobility Geo Platforms. And Dr. Chinmay Hegde, Managing Director, Astricos Consulting Private Limited. So I hand over to our moderator and keynote speaker, Mr. Dinesh Chand Sharma. Over to you, sir, for your opening remarks and to carry forward the proceedings. Yes.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I hope you had a good lunch. And good lunch should come out in your voice as well, because I don't want you to sleep for next at least 1 hour, 15 minutes, because we are running short of time. But then, considering the number of panelists, we will be able to finish, we should be able to finish by 4:15. Before we start our panel discussion, to set the context, I have a short presentation. Since morning you are hearing about smart cities, smart mobilities, standards, policy makings. So I could have spoken to set the context, but it's better that we share some slides. Because in these slides, I will talk about briefly a snapshot of, from an Indian context, where we stand when we talk about smart city rollouts, and what other projects are in place to strengthen or support the smart city initiative or smart city mission in India. I also have a few slides covering about the Europe, more from a standards, because since morning we are talking about standards, and so I have a couple of slides to give you a snapshot about standards which India has adopted or developed, and what Europe or globally what's happening around it. And then 5G, of course, because this session is a deep dive into these technologies, using the technologies as 5G. So if we go back, there was a study by United Nations that by 2030, the world will reach, as far as urbanization is concerned, at the rate at 60%. So you can imagine if such a tremendous growth has to happen from an urbanization point of view, you've got to be ready to take care of those exponential growth, and the technology is there to help around it. Benefits we all know about it. Smart cities will create a more efficient way for the life of its citizens. At the end of it, whatever we roll out, it's for the citizens. You know, when we talk about smart cities, we must talk about smart citizens as well. So which means deployment of the technologies to strengthen smart cities and smart mobility will play a crucial role in the realization of a smart cities rollout in the cities, especially the use of data, using technologies like artificial intelligence, blockchain, all those technologies. But at the end of it, it is the data which will be accumulated, and we have to make a best and efficient use of this data to help our citizens to have a better life. We had 100 smart cities to drive the economic progress, and I think since morning you were hearing it, it's a beginning. I mean, the definition of a smart city is different from one city to another city, from one country to another country. For us, if we can build the basic infrastructure, we could reach to one stage of our smart city label where we could talk about that we are helping in the quality of life of our citizens. In India policies, I mean, 100 Smart Cities mission, you know all the objectives. Please, yeah. Thank you. So according to the latest data, this is where we stand, and this data is from July 5th, 2022, that we have 7,800 plus projects worth 1,90,000 plus crores, which has been tendered, out of which the work order have been issued for more than 7,600. And if you see them in terms of values, it is 1,81,000 crores which has been issued. So you can imagine the size of the money which has gone into the tendering process or into the rollout process. But of course the progress is slow. It's only 4,035 project worth 66,000 have been completed. And there are few cities which we say that they have progressed much better way, and we could call them as smart cities, such as Varanasi, Bhopal, Indore, Surat. And on the right hand side, these are the core infrastructures which every city talks about it. And one of them is efficient urban mobility and public transport, for which we all are here. These are other initiatives which were launched to strengthen our smart cities rollout in India. For example, IUDX, which is an open data platform. It's called India Urban Data Exchange, which was launched by Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. This is a unified database. And the good news is one of the sub-bullet which I highlighted, the Bureau of Indian Standard developed standard for ICT infrastructure or ICT architecture, where IoT reference architecture is also part of it, and it has become a critical component in the future rollout of our smart cities. Then you have a National Urban Digital Mission, SmartNet by MoHUA, Smart City Living Lab by IIIT Hyderabad in collaboration with the European Business Technology Center and the Amsterdam Innovation Arena. They have developed this lab based on the 1M2M platform, and they are showcasing various applications before they roll out in the city. And the FRET Smart Cities as well, which is the Commerce Ministry's logistic division. There are many other initiatives. I need not to go all of them, but you can imagine that smart cities for open data. We have a portal We have a National Urban Innovation Stack, Indian Cycle for Change, IC4C. Cities are also there. And then Data Smart Cities, Indian Urban Observatory, and Ease of Living Index as well. So these are various initiatives which were launched by the Government of India or the various departments or the universities or the colleges to strengthen our smart cities rollout in India. If you see the similar initiative in the European perspective, from a policy perspective, they had two platforms earlier. One was called European Innovation Partnership on Smart Cities and Communities, and the other was Smart Cities Information System. Recently, they have combined these two platforms, and now they call it Smart Cities Marketplace. And the marketplace main areas of cross-cutting operations includes sustainable urban mobility, integrated infrastructure and processes in energy, ICT, and transport, which we are going to focus today in our panel discussions. But then there are many other objectives which they are fulfilling by creating this marketplace in Europe. Similar to India, like the way India, we launched many other projects to strengthen our smart cities rollout. Similarly, in Europe, many project or many smart pilot projects or long-term projects exist, and such as European Energy Research Alliance, which is a joint program with the smart cities to take care of the smart cities. We have a Civitas, Urban Mobility by European Institute of Innovation and Technologies. We have LTIS, which facilitates exchange of information and experience in the field of sustainable and mobility in Europe. Bridge is also there, which is more to strengthen the research part of it. In the morning, we heard from Mr. Chaudhary that standards inhibit the innovations. I don't agree with him, because for many years we have been saying standard-based innovation or standard-based research. When you do a research or develop any platform, when you implement it, it is important to take it to the standardization as well. Otherwise, you will not be able to exploit that particular technologies at the end of it. You can roll out, you can implement it, but then at the end of it, you have to standardize it. So that's what the Bridge project is there in Europe, which makes sure, one way of making sure it. Then you have Intelligent Cities Challenge, and there are many more. These are all hyperlinked. This presentation will be posted on the website, so you can have future references as well. When you talk about smart mobilities, I need not to define it. We all understand smart mobility is a bigger context. It's not only intelligent transport system. It also includes e-mobilities. It also includes railways. It also includes aviation, maritime. So smart mobility is a very big concept, but under which we have many verticals around the mobilities, which is also a human mobility as well. There are various use cases, for example, vehicular information, traffic lights, emergency vehicle on approach, traffic jam parking guidances. You can develop endless number of use cases around smart mobility. Why 5G is vital? The 5G, which is a technology, in India we know that the auction has just taken place, and many of the TSPs have already announced that they will be rolling out the 5G in few months. But 5G is critical because it does addresses, because it brings latency, it brings bigger pipe, which is for the data. On the other side, for the faster communications, there is a latency, and then there are various use cases which is addressing. For example, public safety and security. The 5G will be most critical to have addressing the emergency situations, because you need a lot of data from the site where we have emergency disaster and then start communicating it. Mobility, we talk about it. Mobility will be another important aspect, especially when we have more and more data, you would need an application like 5G. Then smart healthcare. Healthcare is another important business use case from a 5G perspective. On energy efficiency also, there are a lot of development happening around 5G. And then there are many more features. I need not to go it. I will quickly show you. Standards, this slide highlights the benefits we get out of standards. I need not to cover it since morning we are talking about it, but it brings a common understanding. It brings a solutions which has economies of scale. It brings a solutions which has a true competition. But then it is interoperable, because when you talk about information communication technologies, without interoperability, solutions are not viable for a long term. And interoperability is only addressed by the standardization. These are just a snapshot that there are various technical committees or standard development organizations are working on it. You see, the biggest challenge is when you talk about smart cities, and when you see from a vertical perspective, say for example, mobility. Now, on the mobility, which was a sector handled by the non-ICT player, now by saying smart mobility, I'm only putting an ICT layer on top of it, and we call it smart mobility. So these were non-ICT sectors until few years before. But now by putting the smart, just by putting the layer of ICT, we are bringing the ICT context into those non-ICT sectors. And that is the biggest challenge. So the challenge is such that the traditional telecom or IT, the way they were working, now they have to change the approach because non-ICT sector is coming. So that's why you see various technical committees are ensuring that there is no duplication of work. And that's why we see system committee at IC, we see joint working task force, and that's how the structure is. If on the right hand side we have a Bureau of Indian Standard, we have a TSDSI and TEC who are working on the standards, and we are working with them very closely. Thanks, Sumit. This is one slide which will give you a snapshot of what different standards have been developed in India by Indian standard development organizations, including various reports. On the right hand side, these are the standard numbers which are developed by the BIS. You see ICT architecture is there, you see reference architecture for IoT is there. Similarly, there are other related standards by the LITD Technical Committee. TEC has published various reports. In the morning, Sushilji highlighted Code of Practice for Security, 1M2M for platform, which will integrate your all the IoT-based different applications. CDOT has developed. Mr. Upadhyay talked about it this morning. There are other committees also when we talk about e-mobility, when you talk about intelligent transport system, and that TED, Transport Engineering Department 28, which is working on it. They have developed some 20 standards, and this is a hyperlink, you can go through them. Then Automotive Research Association of India are also developing technical regulations. They work with UNEC Working Party 29, and then they adopt those global technical regulations, and they work with Ministry of Transport, and AIS 140 is, for example, one of the examples, and I think we have our colleague, he will be sharing more information what more has been done. This is my last slide to give you a snapshot what different releases are coming when you talk about 5G standards. And these are the releases which will be implemented now when you talk about the commercial rollouts. And on the lower side, you can see the timeline for the rollout of these releases. With that, if I could conclude my presentations, I could say that smart cities are in a sense will be the data-driven urban spaces. And similarly, as a result, one of the use cases is smart mobility, which will form the strong foundation for smart city architecture. Standards also play a role in building up a smart cities for various reasons like collaborations, economies of scale, and standardized interoperable solutions. And 5G will profoundly impact economies and societies as it will provide the necessary communication infrastructure. And IETS will be one of the smart city applications that can be realized. So with that, setting up a context, let's move on to the panel discussion. And when we thought like we have a short panel discussions, now we have a big panel discussion. So the challenge has become more now because we will be closing at 4:15, but still we have 1 hour. So I will start by saying that each of the speakers, first, you share, when we talk about policy, when we talk about product, solutions, and its standards. In few minutes, please share what your organizations, either as an individual or through your organizations, what you have done when we talk about smart mobility or smart cities. Okay? So we have heard few speakers, but there is no harm in repeating because we might have few new audience as well. So let me start with Mr. Chaudhary to begin with what you could share before I ask the individual questions.
Yeah, so now I'm in a different capacity talking about my company Gaia. At Gaia we have created our own made in India gateway product, which is a multi-protocol gateway, which is completely compliant with 1M2M integrated into the platform. We have deployed it in more than 150 cities for a couple of use cases. We have deployed it for sensor aggregation, for cold chain monitoring across the country. More than 80 cities couple of clients, like big clients like Amul, DHL and others, where we are monitoring their warehouses. But again, all of them are compliant with the one M2M standards, including security built into the device. So that is what we have done from a device perspective on the M2M side. We have also worked with setting a lot of standards for LoRa. When LoRa was first introduced into the country, we were part of the standards setting that was going on for low power wide area IoT networks. So we contributed a lot at that time, though it was part of a larger team with DOT, with Sushilji. We were working quite closely. And subsequent to that, we have moved our focus to work on the software side of integration of products, and we have integrated Bluetooth, LoRa, Wi-Fi based IoT devices, and we have created an enterprise SaaS platform that we have now deployed for airports, railways, for cities, real estate clients, hospitals, essentially trying to integrate where man and machine have to come together, and we need to orchestrate workflows. Again, there is a standard that is there for orchestrating workflows. So we use that standard so that we can interface with any other system which is there. This is IT standardization. Network standardization, I keep on saying, has already happened and it is very easy to do. IT standardization is a totally different can, because everybody who knows a little bit of IT does something else. So we have to work harder to do IT integration between, though it's easier to do as a concept, but there is no standardization around IT integration around that. Now, coming to what we are doing today, we are working on the Delhi Intelligent Traffic Management project. We have to take Delhi's 1800 junctions and figure out how to coordinate traffic, how to do all kinds of sensor installations with cameras, with sensors, with all kinds of technology, such that all of you can reach home faster and spend more time with your family. As I said, that's our ultimate goal. But that requires a very interesting, the reason why I wanted to bring that up is from a standards perspective. The project will get delayed, and you know why it will get delayed? It is because we have to dig thousands of kilometers of fiber into each of these intersections. And more than the fiber probably is already there through some other technology, through RailTel, through Jio, through others, it might probably be there, but the last mile digging of streets is going to destroy a lot of streets of Delhi. Even if there is a small cut that we are going to do, 5G can solve that problem. Though there is no product today which is creating 5G controllers for traffic. So I have a project and a product concept that we are working with CDAC. CDAC has a technology for controllers. So if anybody is interested in this audience to work with us on a 5G enabled traffic controller, which will be one of the first in the world, where we don't need to cut the street. We can install the controller will talk to the traffic lights without requiring the control signal to go via. So it's a very interesting problem and a challenge, because jammers can stop your signals, because whenever a VIP goes, they put jammers. So there's a lot of work to be done, technology thinking that needs to be done, but I'm leaving it to big guys over here to talk about how to do it.
Before I go to the next panelist, you innovated a product as part of the Gaia. The innovation was live. And then you implemented a one M2M on top of it.
That's right.
Which means the innovation could migrate to a standard.
I said after.
Fair enough.
I did say that innovation will happen after. Yeah.
That's exactly.
So I know what I'm talking about.
It does not inhibit the innovation. Innovation should happen. Startups should develop the solutions, implement the solutions. Then it's their responsibility either to migrate their solutions to a standardized solutions, interface with a standardized solutions, or standardize its own solution.
That's right.
That's how we address the innovation part of it.
Yeah.
Let's go to our next panelist, Ms. Sethi. You have done a lot as part of your organization, so please share what all have been done in this smart mobility and smart cities.
Probably not many of you would have heard about us. So I represent a company called Delhi Integrated Multimodal.
Close it mic, please. Thoda sa mic close.
Yeah. So I represent a company called Delhi Integrated Multimodal Transit System. So mobility is part of what we do, is what we breathe. We were created for this. So as what we do in mobility, a lot of people who stay in Delhi would know that we run, 50% of buses in Delhi. We run it through an ICT platform which was developed in-house. We run the largest vehicle tracking platform in India. We track close to around 2 lakh vehicles, which include autos, taxis, Ola, Uber, whatever. This we have been doing since 2000, so it's new now since AIS 140 came, but we are doing it since 2010. So we started during CWG and we are continuing that same platform. We have various verticals. So one of the verticals where we have a team where does intelligent signaling. We have implemented this solution in many cities, not in Delhi. The Delhi project is being done by Gaia and CDAC right now.
We told them to partner.
So, but yes, somewhere down the line we will be there, and primarily the signaling part of it, we are CDAC partners, and we have implemented our solution in Jammu, Srinagar, Ahmedabad, Surat. The team is there. At that point, somewhere down the line, we had a feeling around 3 years back that we should come with our own controllers. The technology which we are working in is, age old. So not primarily what we feel should be used going forward. So now, we have an opportunity of developing a 5G wireless controller, and obviously our team would, love to work with both CDAC as well as them and do something. Other than that, my company is looking at mobility as a service. So currently we do the passenger related, you look at, journey planners, you look at ETAs. We manage the largest fleets in India. We do intelligent transportation for public transport in Delhi. We do that in Bombay through Best Buses. We have implemented that in Nagpur. We do it in Gurugram. So now we have started doing it in Kerala as well. So Kerala State Transport is using our platform, our technologies to enhance commuter confidence and provide all the applications which you would have heard about. This is something which our company does. We have been very strong advocate of standardization. So because we were the users, we understood what the problem is. If you look at our buses, just to give you an example, I have 6,000 buses to manage. I will do a tender and install a OBU of a particular vendor who wins the tender. But the buses will keep getting added. Every year I will add some buses, 2,000, 1,000, 500. That essentially will not come with the same OBU. So if they have different standards, they are not talking to each other. Every time I have to do a new software. The intelligence I have built in is based on that device giving me that kind of data, whether harsh braking is happening, whether overspeeding is happening, harsh acceleration is happening. My driver profiling, my, safety profiling of that driver, We do, not even 10% of accidents which other STUs do. Why? Nobody has published that statistics. We do that because we have ITS implemented. Not today, since 2009. Not a single trip in Delhi is paid till its GPS track and the OBU is functioning. If you look at other states, that percentage in any other smart city also, the percentage will not even be 60%. We are at 99.9 or whatever. And it's not today. It's because of we standardized too early. In 2012, we published our own protocol and standard. Whosoever could do that device, so there are 43 companies who created that device. Later on, through BIS and Automotive Indian Standards, we are part or leading one of few efforts in that domain. There is a standard, All India standard, which became mandatory from 1st January 2019. So any vehicle which is manufactured or is required for passenger mobility needs to have this device and a panic button. That is possible because there was a standard. Now, how has it enabled innovation? Now, there are 107 companies who manufacture those devices. Out of that, before the standards, there were hardly 15, 20. So there are 86, 87 new companies which have mushroomed because there was a standard. They knew what to make. Based on that, there are more than 400 companies who have created apps because now they understand what data is going to come. Irrespective of the device vendor, they can make applications. Even smaller, three students teams from IIT, Delhi or IIT Bombay are making applications for those cities and maybe which could be rolled out later on through other government exchange programs. We run one of the largest open data platforms in transportation. So Delhi government in 2018 decided that all transport data which DIMS generates will be made open. So societies, computer, institutes or agencies could use that data and make applications on top of it. So if you look at Delhi One, there is an app which uses open data, though it is generated from DIMS applications and DIMS projects, but it is still done through an open data platform. The same data is consumed by Google, the same data is consumed by Hair Maps to do their own traffic, and what you see as congestion in Google Maps is contributed through that data. As policy, we are doing some part in intelligent transportation system. So if you look at bus body design, there is a new standard. In that standard, there are a lot of stuff which has come from BIS and AIS. So your GPS devices, your CCTV cameras, your passenger information systems, those are all standardized. And they have been made part of a policy that any bus which is made full body needs to have all this. So, now going back to 5G, those CCTVs will, give real-time images to my control room and I'll be able to do something about it. So that's where I land.
Thank you very much. And he's a very strong contributor towards standardization, so very closely working with us. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. He deserves it. Yeah, Mr. Mohan.
Yeah, thank you. So from a geo standpoint, obviously from the smart mobility side, what we are currently focused is to bring the whole stack together, the fundamentals at a unit level, which can enable a vehicle, namely the device or the sensor which goes into the vehicle, and obviously the connectivity, Jio being a digital services player, and now with 5G coming in and more announcements to be expected from the telecom services provider side on 5G, and the cloud platforms, right? And how do we make the most of the data here, right? So we have a data science practice which brings out analytics. Again, all made in India platforms, hardware, connectivity, cloud platforms, and a bunch of applications, right? So that's what we are focused on right now. What essentially it means, our focus is on 3 verticals in mobility. One is enabling the OEMs. When I say OEMs, the vehicle manufacturers themselves, like a Maruti or a Tata Motors or a Ashok Leyland, where the vehicles get produced, enable them so that the vehicle is connected right at the start at the factory. And also the vehicles on the road, right? How do we connect them? The aftermarket side of the OEM. The second big segment is the fleet, which Mr. Sethi also touched upon, which is the backbone of our transport and logistics sector in India. So solutions crafted to fleet, right? And last, definitely not the least, the fastest growing segment is the EV segment, right? Still nascent, still a baby sector, but it will be the largest sector in the next 4 to 5 years in mobility. So solutions are crafted for each of these segments in this domain. And again, what is the core that we bring? We all are consumers, right? Like today we use the phone. Today you use a phone, you use a Jio phone, you have a Jio Savan with it, you have a Jio TV, you have a Jio Cinema. Now as an end user, the experience should be seamless. Now if I'm driving a car, I can't have a different music app, YT Music on my cluster, just because it's coming from some international player. I just punch in my mobile number and my Savan playlist from the phone should sync to your car. So the journey is seamless. So the question is about the right technology at the right price, because we will look at scale. Not only we, in fact, if India needs to go 100% digital, we need affordability. That's very unique characteristic to this market. So our solutions are focused around quality and the right price point, which will enable a scale. and at the end of it bringing a seamless user experience. So this is a little bit about what we are doing from GeoStable, but yes, in the near future you can expect us working more closely towards the standards part and many other things to come with the advent of 5G in India and the smart mobility and smart city space as well, right? Dinesh, to address both your points. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's hear from our sir.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. At the onset, let me congratulate the organizers for such an interesting topic that they have pulled off regarding the smart cities and the smart mobility. Now, the government's idea is very clear. The kind of mobility that is going to take place in future, it is to be based on public transportation. There will be very less of individual mobility. It will be primarily focused on public transport. In addition to that, there will be support to micro-mobility, cycling, walking, those kind of things. And if you recollect, our own Prime Minister had so clearly laid down that what the paradigm of mobility is going to be, regardless of whether it is in a smart city or non-smart city, in an urban area or in a rural geography, wherever it is, it should be common, it should be connected, it should be convenient. And as far as technology is concerned, that should be charged, that should be cutting edge, that should be clean. So probably in the mobility sector, the first priority is decarbonizing it. And once we say that we are moving on, we are conceptualizing that mobility in a smart city, then probably that gets more so reinforced because there the entire mobility stream has to be decarbonized, it has to be on a clean fuel, it can't be on fossil fuel, it is electric, it could be hydrogen, whatever it is, but it has to be graduating from that. Now, once we say that mobility should be a smart mobility, that of course means that a lot of, as Mr. Sharma so clearly mentioned, a lot of IoT devices, a lot of internet applications, digital applications, connectivity among the vehicles, those things have to be developed. In addition to that, the digital with the digital application, there should be better management of these transport systems as far as their timings are concerned, the routing is concerned, the stoppages are concerned, frequency is related to. So all these things are guided because you have got now better database, more enriched database on which you can go in for analysis. Government of India has taken a lot of initiatives, good number of them you are aware of. Electric mobility is being pushed forward in a phenomenal way. India is praised all over the world because it is the only country that is taking it on a structured way and probably on the fastest forward manner. You might as well say that, okay, then why are we not like Norway, why not Japan, why not here and there? That is okay, because those are the countries they have put in 20, 25 odd years. And our most sincere kind of attachment and support to electric mobility has started only in last, say, 3 years. And the difference is quite visible. 2 years from now, I myself could see OEMs asking, whom do we manufacture for? There are no takers. And today's position is that you go for the vehicles, at least not in two-wheelers and three-wheelers, they have ramped up their capacity very fast. But in case of four-wheelers, you would see that the waiting time is 4 months, 6 months. And the best part is that it has brought about tremendous, synergy in the entire automobile sector. Now, what is the grand plan of the government? Smart cities, smart mobility, that is one portion. With such a mobility support, we want India to be the manufacturing hub of the world. We want ourselves to be number one. And when you were discussing about the standards and the specifications, you can't be number one without standards and specifications. You have to be globally best. Otherwise, what would happen is, make in India, use in India, throw in India. If you want it to be an object of desire for the entire world, you have to ensure that the best of the standards have to be met with. And you so clearly mentioned about electrotechnical divisions of Bureau of Indian Standards, Department of Science and Technology, and those standards are pulled off with a lot of stakeholder consultation. And because I am quite involved into it, so I am aware. For example, in the battery swapping standards, there are a lot of pressures that don't make standards. If you don't make standards, then you will be substandard or without standard. You want to be of the world-class standard. How do you go to that level? So, okay, one can appreciate that why you are saying this, because probably you have invested so much of money already into the assembly line, the systems. You think that it would be all the more costly. You will have to take the reverse revenue stream, the positive revenue stream will take time to flow back. That's why you are not committed to standards. But standards are something that is sacrosanct. That is why in a battery swapping stream, in all physical forms, whether it is the communication protocol, whether it is the connectors, whether it is we are ensuring so that interoperability is maintained. You are not locked to a battery. You are locked to your vehicle. Where is the battery? It is something like, in a conventional gas stove, you own the gas stove. You are not bothered about whether it is Indian, it is HP, it is BP. You should not be locked with a technological obsolescence. Something goes off, it's okay. You don't have to bother. You want that when you are out of your house, you want certain kilometers of range that should help you, and that is precisely you go in for. So battery swapping standard, that is, we are attempting to roll it out. Maybe by next month we should be able to see light of the day. In this budget only it was announced. So these are some of the initiatives. Government has a lot of flagship initiatives. FAME 2 is there. Then PLI schemes, most aspirational, you see, in 2 sunrise areas, in advanced chemistry cell, as well as very upscale automobile components. And I explained to you that what we want to be, and that is what we are going to achieve, of course, with your all cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Give sir a round of applause, because when you talk about policy measures, everything is in place, including standardizations. Sir has already covered it. And I can tell you, while I represent the European standards organizations, the world is watching us. Because if we can bring the policy, if we can bring the standard, the whole world will follow it. While battery swapping is nothing new, it's happening in pockets, but rolling it out on such a scale in India is really going to drive the entire world. So work is ongoing as far as standardization of this battery swapping policy is concerned. The battery management system, BMS, we are also working on it, and the connector type, so that could be standardized. So it's a great effort. India is doing it, and the whole world is watching it. I can tell you there is associations in Europe which is manufacturers of these connectors or the batteries. They have assembled together and they are watching the progress of India so that they can incorporate those things. So it's a very good effort happening to make the reality, especially the two-wheelers to begin with, because that's a mass market. But then once we succeed in this, it will follow on the three-wheelers or the four-wheelers as well. But two-wheelers are definitely important one. So thank you very much, sir, for sharing all those updates. Over to you.
Hello. My name is Nilesh Kelkar. I represent Indus Towers. So let me quickly cover what we have done in the space of smart city and also share some of the pointers which came before my turn came in. So Indus is basically a passive infrastructure or telecom passive infrastructure player. So we have telecom towers roughly to the tune of 1,80,000 all across India. Every day, around 650 million people touch Indus Tower as an infrastructure when they are making call or accessing a data. So we serve this for Airtel, all telecom operators, Airtel, Vodafone, Jio, BSNL, MTNL. As a part of Smart City, this idea started at Indus in 2016 when we started investing in Smart City. So we have done Vadodara Smart City, Bhopal Smart City, New Delhi Municipal Corporation, Dehradun, Gurgaon Metro, and of course now there's one more win possibly, the contract is getting close in north part of India, which is Srinagar. As a scope, what we do is we actually lay fiber for entire city. We put up a smart poles which hosts all the list of smart equipment like CCTV, Wi-Fi, environmental sensors, variable messaging display boards. Along with that smart pole also hosts telecom infrastructure. And that's the first thing which we have done across 5 cities. The more than around 500 crore investment has gone in from Indus side. We work on the PPP model. One point which Mr. Sinha talked about is battery related point. So at one location we have actually conducted a pilot for battery swapping. So the way things are changing, that mobile tower site location is no more only for mobile, it is for advertisement, it is for Wi-Fi, it can be used as a EV charging infrastructure, it is used as a battery swapping infrastructure depending upon the location and space availability. Rather, we are also going ahead and talking to logistics companies to host certain quick delivery supply point for as a location so that delivery can be improved. Now, of course, in next term we'll talk about 5G and how we are preparing for 5G.
Yes, okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Standardization's perspective, like the way in the morning session, of course, there was some kind of a discussion and conflict of opinions. Yes, of course. What I do have been advocating is standardization is mainly for the sake of simplicity, ultimately, because each of the elements or the components in a large infrastructure, it could be city is a larger infrastructure, or it could be any kind of a mobility such it could be something like air, air mobility or sea route or anything of that sort. The large multiple elements talk in different languages, but there needs to be a commonality across that, and interoperability is the quite important factor. So that's where. Coming to the smart city standardization aspect, the policy initially has addressed, of course, Mr. Sinha represents Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog, when India Smart City started, they brought in livability standards, right? Livability indices. One of the core pillars of livability indices has been mobility, right? So, mobility has been the sub-segment or the sub-pillar under the basic infrastructure pillar, which had a highest of the weightages, I think probably 40% or more than 40% in terms of weighted average model. The responsibility was on the integrated command and control centers to bring in that standardization into practice, right? Because that is where we aggregate the entire set of the data across the city from various different verticals. It could be water infrastructure, it could be power infrastructure, or it could be a mobility such as a transport as well as traffic management or a surveillance and safety security, various such kind of things. The point of convergence or point of aggregation where it occurs is at the command and control center. So the responsibility, again, I stress and I insist, lies on the ICCC, and ICCC platform should do that effectively, yes. So we, as an organization, Astricos, we realized that maybe about 3 years ago, and we started building a particular AI and ML based platform, which right now probably in Asia itself is the only one platform right now. It is certified, not just compliant, certified under ISO 37120 and ISO 37122. Smart City Administrative KPI standards and Smart City Citizens Satisfaction standards, right? Quality of life standard it is called. So that is how we started realizing that, and we started building. Yes, of course, the results have been, but the challenge still lies to make it convincing that how important these KPIs standardization and how it is important to measure these KPIs to the urban administrators. Yes, it may take some time, right? But the effort has been started, and we have started doing that effort because the benefit that we have or edge we have is we have access to the data from various different verticals sitting in the nerve center of the the city, that is command and control center. So if this kind of a standardization is taken into the consideration, there is a long way to go in terms of, because data, brings immense amount of power if it is utilized properly, such as it can predict various different kind of aspects collaboratively, and it can also improve the cross collaborative operations across the city in a tremendous way. So that is what is we envision to do as we move forward also, and bringing awareness in this angle. We have been doing a lot of training to even urban administrators wherever we are implementing smart cities, and we also look forward to do in many other cities.
Thank you, Chinmay. And maybe let me start a question with you only, because you have been rolling out these solutions in various smart cities. From your experience, do you see there is a gaps and challenges, which of course the one which you highlighted, cross-functioning, cross-organizations, but is there any other gap or challenges you would highlight? That's first part of it. The second part is, do we really need 5G for the current required use cases of those smart cities?
Yeah.
That's a question to you.
Well, first and foremost, the challenges. Yes, the policy is a challenge right now. Why policy is a challenge, if I have to state that clearly and categorically, is yes, some amount of the challenge in India has been, when the smart city started, has been addressed documentarily in terms of forming the SPVs, special purpose vehicles, so that decision can be decentralized and the respective cities representatives as well as the officials, they understand the city better, and also there has been a participation opportunity for the citizens to improve their city, right? So that has been, but in practice, the line departments do not really agree to participate into that, right? That is the challenge, exactly. So, example, couple of smart cities where we have implemented and it has gone live. Except for 2 to 3 line departments, no other line departments, they come and sit in the command center and operate. That's the challenge, right? So 2, 3 important departments, of course law and order, they come because this particular command center may be superior to their control room, right? Lucrative part, and they get better benefits. And their control rooms may not have the video recording facility or analytical facility and all such kind of things, they come. So for the technological edge and ease of their operation, they come. But policy aspect or the collaborative standard operating procedures aspect, there is still a lot of scope for improvement. Lot, when I say lot, it could be another 3 to 4 years it will take, right? So that is, I am just estimating a timeline. That's number one. Number two, coming to the second point, which is 5G, requirement of 5G, right? Though we would be having, the fiber optics or any other such kind of measures of communications, it could be over a multiplay network also. There are terrains in India, because we, as I have earlier also told in my sessions, that we work in, the most feasible states like Karnataka also, or the Maharashtra also, we work in least feasible states like Sikkim. Okay, so we see the challenge of the communication there. In Sikkim, we had an issue when the project was being conceptualized to dig the land. Because if you dig somewhere to lay a fiber, you may have a landslide. That's a challenge, right? So that such a sensitive terrain, the soil nature is so sensitive, and hence we established the radio frequency network across the city, okay? But still radio frequency is prone to the climatic conditions. Many places in India have such kind of climatic challenges, and speed, because you are establishing the surveillance or the public addressing system, kind of advanced systems which are slightly bandwidth heavy in transmission, right? Or the data heavy, or in terms of transmission, where 5G may become a game changer, right? And it also is a kind of a resistant to the climatic conditions, right? Whatever the climatic impact may be, that is debatable matter, but still there is a good scope for it if it becomes regulated by means of the policymakers, right? So that's quite important. Otherwise, if there are private players, yes, again standardization, especially to the India, because bands of 4G in India and other countries are all totally different, right? So that of course there are works are going on, but in 5G it needs to be more simplified. That is my,
Thank you very much.
opinion.
Very valuable input. Let me move to Mr. Kelkar. Let me ask a question around the infra, because Indus Towers is more into active and passive infra. When we launched the smart cities, we had an intention and still have an intention to roll out the latest and the greatest technologies, such as 5G. But when you see it from an infrastructure point of view, because when you talk about 5G, you will have small cells, okay? When you have a small coverage or a small cells, you will have to roll out massive infrastructure. What's your opinion about it when you see it more from a practical perspective of 5G rollout in India?
Okay. Frankly, still we have all of us have not understood in the true sense what 5G will bring in.
Yeah.
It is evolving, right? So some of the pointers which typically come forward is speed, latency, the reliability, and kind of a data-centric approach. There are certain aspects which possibly Mohan will subsequently address, is like network slicing, the prioritization of within the network. Today, what happens is that when you are attending, let's say, a match at Mohali Stadium, the network is jammed, right? But I need to give a priority or a preference for a security system. Can I give in the 4G? No. In 5G, we can. That is a main advantage. So in case of smart city, there will be certain applications which are very, very sensitive, security oriented or safety oriented. The 5G is going to play a role. Now the challenges are when smart cities were rolled out, yes, intention was to adopt a new technology. Most of the infrastructure which has gone in is suitable for adaptation of 5G or equivalent technology. The challenges where and are is really dense urban areas where possibly a crane cannot reach and you can't lay a fiber there or you can't put up a pole there. Now, small pole like a light pole, today it is an asset of local electricity company, it doesn't belong to smart city. Can I use that, which is like some changes required in policy? Can I use that pole? Because 5G will definitely bring densification, which means lower height, very closer sites, the distance between two poles or the site will be like 30 meter, 50 meter, and hence it can be effectively used to use or adopt IoTization in smart city. So it is going to be a convergence between telecom industry as well as the smart city applications. Point number 2 here is, while I mentioned we did Vadodara, Bhopal and Dehradun, at that time when we laid a fiber, we took a kind of a perspective of telecom operators. Where do they need a fiber and where smart city will need a fiber? Now, at the end of the day, telecom operators will remain the biggest user of fiber. They are going to kind of fund this entire fiber investment if we go about it. Now, there are few cities where fibers have been laid, but it is laid with a less capacity. The network element is not properly planned, the ring architecture is not properly planned, and hence adaptation of those cities with the newer technology is going to be challenged. Now whether we once again rope in some new partner who can invest, the maintenance of fiber is very, very poor. I think Mohan, you must have experienced it, and fiber is a sensitive element. Of course, the access part, the backhaul will be a fiber based. In 5G, definitely we can go for FWA or FWA based technology or access part, which will definitely increase the efficiency. But frankly speaking, like we did Smart City 1.0, in Smart City 2.0, adaptation of newer technology and maintenance of this is required to be addressed properly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelkar. I go to Sinha sir. I think broadly you covered the entire gamut of the policy initiative. I have two questions, sir. One is about when we know that there is a massive requirement of batteries would be there when we talk about e-mobility, and advancement in the battery is happening, should happen, because at the end of it we will have to, if we are today on a slow charger, we have to go for a fast charger scenario. So are you planning any or are you working on any research in this area of battery advancements? Number one. Number two, if I understand correctly, the FAME 1 and FAME 2 is more towards two-wheeler or maybe three-wheelers as well. But what about the four-wheelers? Because at the end of it, when you talk about electric mobility or electric cars, the major cost is the battery cost. Are there any initiatives happening under your leadership at Niti Aayog or the Government of India, if you could share with us two perspectives, sir?
Okay, as far as this R&D perspective is concerned on the battery precisely, let me inform you that today 16 IITs, and we have been able to nudge them, 16 IITs are having dedicated departments. You know, they have opened, they have given very positive response to our call. And they have created departments, they call it with different names, and which are primarily focused on battery and of course some of the most essential electronic components. So BMS is there, a drivetrain is there, those things are there. So that is 16 IITs are already, they have opened up a department. So department means that there are programs, there are courses. I was told that one of them have started even an undergraduate course and they are trying to kind of, bring it, to make it at the same time happen when the first Make in India battery will be rolled out in 24-25, 23-24, I'm sorry, 24-25, because on 28th of last month, we have signed the agreement. We have given them 2 years for the time for creating the manufacturing facility, and after that, they have to start with 25% of localization. So that is what the parameter is. So as far as R&D is concerned, we are very focused on it. In addition to that, most of the OEMs are also working on it. Of course, their vision is not all that. I mean, one does not expect it is primarily confined to cost-cutting measures and things like that, how to improve upon the assembly line, how to reduce the manpower, those things are involved. But definitely they are also working on it. And what we are doing is, we are connecting these IITs with the CTOs. And we are telling CTOs and the IITs that the industry must come out with a specific problem statement. It should not be that you sponsor a department and there is a professor, lecturer, assistant professor, peon, and they are merrily enjoying life for 5 years. That is not the idea is. There should be a very specific problem statement and access to all their facility and things like that. And within a time frame, the delivery has to be given, such sponsorship has to be there. So in that spectrum, let me tell you that a lot of work is going on. And now we want that the same thing should be extended to the university systems. Today, the best part is that the way we have taken it forward, the most premier universities of the world, you name it, MIT, you name it, Michigan, you name it, the best of the universities, they want to collaborate with these IITs. You know, the reason, because they know one thing, that the talent lies here. Yes. So whatever best, that is why I always say, whatever best happens in the world, either on its top management or the core working group, Indians are definitely there. Now once we know that thing so clear, why it is that the same thing cannot be pulled off in our own country? Why we can't create the same thing? The best thing is that today it is going on. So the battery manufacturing, as I mentioned, so we are supporting, of course, we have limited resources. We are supporting 50 gigawatt with 18,100 CR. But it is not that only that much would come. I always say that incentives are like scholarships. You don't study for a scholarship. Scholarship makes you study more. So you have got bigger aims. So precisely there are others also who are working without incentives. They are also going on. And what we are doing is, we are saying that we will support both of them. One, those with incentive, and those without incentive. So if they want to source the raw materials, if you want to go in for any technology support which they require, and the best part is, you know, the ones which we have supported, and others also, they have purchased as their technology partners some of the best institutions of the world. So like UK's best Faradian Institute that has been purchased by one of our the industry player. Similarly, Netherlands, one of the technology player, they have been purchased. Similarly, that is the kind of, that is how it is, because, we simply said that the standards we will not compromise. There was tremendous pressure from those countries which are absolutely committed to standards. Those countries want us that you don't make standards. You remain like that only. Exactly. So we simply told them that no, as far as the standards in battery and what are the performance standards, it is the life cycle, it is the energy density, these are sacrosanct. They cannot be compromised on that. We can't lower the standards. And then of course, whether you participate, you don't participate, that's your choice. But this is what our industry is going to pull off, and that is why we got the best response. There was a second question to it.
If it can be extended, if it is already extended to four-wheeler.
Okay, four-wheeler. So let me tell you, we are very clear in our understanding that how precisely this electric mobility will move on, what will be the sequencing of it. So number one, it will be two-wheelers and three-wheelers. Number two, it is going to be public transport. In Delhi, next time when you come here, you will see that the transport system will be changed. Public transport will be there. We want public transport to be that it should be something that you can say that, okay, I have come with that. No. Today what happens is when I ask you, how did you come? You say metro, that is acceptable. But if I ask you and you say that by bus, by DTC, then I say, bata diye hote gaadi bhej deta. So that sort of feeling is there. Now this thing has to be changed. Internationally, everywhere public transport is there. That is why you see on 5th of June when Prime Minister launched the program LIFE. There's a global movement launched by India where we have said that lifestyle for movement. So if you want that climate and those issues should be taken care of, there cannot be, you can't have one group that will be doing it and other group that will be watching it. Everybody has to be partner to it. So children have to be brought into it. Everybody has to know that how exactly it can be pulled off. So after buses, it is going to be aggregator-based four-wheelers. So that is the next thing. And last, it is cars. In India, we don't have so many cars. We have only 20 cars per 1,000 population. While in US there are 800 cars per 1,000 population. And I always think that if you allow car to each and every individual in Delhi also, let's say, and allow them 20 kilometers of run at least every day, I wonder that where is the space to allow them to run. So what would happen is that those cars will be like, it. In your colony, how many cars are there which must not have moved since last 3-4 years? Even trees must have grown over it. So those cars must be there. That is an offense side. So this is how precisely we are going to take it forward. Four-wheelers, yes, the Indian manufacturers are. We are encouraging international players also to come into our stream, so that it has to be making. But then we are very clear that as far as localization percentage is concerned, it has to be very aspirational. You can't bring everything from all over the world, pack it together here and say that, no, okay, this is making here. No. We can't be fooled like that. Thank you.
I will ask one more question, sir, because I don't know. I know time is limited because we might not get a second question opportunity. The question I have, sir, when we built the charger standard, we incorporated all different chargers because we wanted the ecosystem to build on, and which is the right way forward. So charger thing is done. Now let's talk about the battery connector, sir. Looking at the size and the scope of it, do you think the one connector type is enough, or do you need more than one? Because I think having a standardized, I believe personally, limiting it to one connector is a problem, but we should have more than one. but of course, through a standardized process approved by ARAI. So what is your thought process around this type of connectivity?
Okay, you see, in all the standards that we have laid out, you see, it is not only one type that we have linking to, no. Because I know that in the market they always say that, okay, you go in, we are siding with a particular OEM kind of thing. No, it's not like that. We are simply defining that this should be the minimum threshold quality into that, so that safety is not compromised, so that performance standards are guaranteed, so that the vehicle becomes, it sells through. These are the things that is precisely what we are doing. And the best part is, all these things have been done with lot of stakeholder consultation. Nobody has been left out. It is not that we sat together in some Sylvan surrounding and decided, okay, this is going to be standard. It's not like that. It has been, and plus, we are always open to corrections. It is not, we always say, no, that is why I appreciate, and of course, let me not sound like a mouthpiece of the government, if I could say that here is a government that says, that knows that where is my limit. So these things have to be driven by the industries. But when it comes to standards, it has to be laid down by us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Let me go to Mohan. Question is, you talked about various use cases, in case of 5G. Maybe let me frame a question around, on top of it. When we talk about rollout, the way the rollout 4G happened, now when we talk about 5G rollout, how this rollout will happen. Like for example, he brought up one example of the Northeast, or another example was the stadium, including the slicing, because slicing is bringing the different use cases, So what do you think from an Indian perspective? It's an immediate low-hanging fruit for 5G as a use cases which could be immediately implemented the day the 5G is commercial. So some use cases, just share.
Yeah, sure, Dinesh, thanks. I think very relevant question of the time, I would say, right? So obviously, right, 5G, what's the hype all about, right? We all know, sitting here and all the audience listening to us online, high bandwidth, low latency, right? But it brings in one very unique advantage, which Mr. Nilesh also mentioned. You can slice the network and assure a quality of service, right? You're in a stadium full of people, your network won't choke. So these are some of the fundamental advantages the 5G technology brings in. And as we sit here and speak to each other, the spectrum auctions recently concluded, as latest as early this week were concluded. And what we see is a good level of spectrum bidding happening, right? Meaning the purchases are so good that at least the first rollout would be a decent rollout in the country, pan-India coverage by all the operators put together, which is very encouraging, unlike what was anticipated just before the auctions, right? So I think that's phenomenal in terms of the commitment of the service providers to bring in 5G. But yes, coming to the context of smart mobility and smart cities, right? We see the use cases with the 5G availability, pan-India. We definitely have certain low-hanging fruits which are ready to be rolled out immediately in the near future. When I say near future, in the span of 2 to 3 years or 4 years, right? 2 to 3 years horizon. Now, these are in 3 different layers when we say levels. One is at a unit level. Second is at a aggregate level of as a city, right? And third is at a civic services level, right? A lot of things have been spoken about. Mr. Subhendu highlighted fantastic examples of standardization around certain areas. So take one by one. At a unit level, right? Today, a lot of use cases like autonomous driving. What does a unit level mean in smart mobility? A vehicle which is on the road, or a roadside unit, right? Or any sensor that's installed in a smart city which is contributing to smart mobility, right? So that's the unit level. So by virtue of technologies being available and 5G being available, we'll see some immediate use cases. One is we'll see autonomous driving becoming a reality, right? First levels, of course, not a fully autonomous car, it's still some time away, but we'll see the very first flavors rolling out on the roads. All the automakers are ready with the technology and eager to roll out autonomous vehicles, right? So that's one important use case which we'll all see, and that will bring transformation to all of us. We need not drive every second that we are in the car. Now that's a real big relief, right? In a traffic, your car can autonomously move at least a little bit, half a kilometer within traffic. Now that's significant improvement. That's a promising use case. In line with that, vehicle to V2X communications, right? Vehicle to vehicle within the city and vehicle to the city infrastructure. Now this is a fundamentally game-changing use case, because lot of data with the availability of 5G gets captured real time, which can be brought back, onto the data cloud, and real time traffic and many other services can be brought into life, right? So that's the second use case. And obviously some of the solutions that we're already seeing, like smart parking and traffic decongestion services, is another big use case which will come, which is much needed in the hour, almost in every city of the world, not just India or Bombay or Delhi. It's the need of the hour. These are some of the use cases which will see light of the day almost immediately. These are like need of the hour for us, right? The other big thing in smart mobility, I would say, is very newborn child in this space is aerial mobility, right? Drones, right? Now in Jio we have our own drones arm, right, under smart mobility, and India is committed to doing big in drones, right? Last year, November, Government of India rolled out the digital sky policy, right? And recently in the drone Mahotsav that happened, our own Prime Minister came and flew the drone, right? And I think the keenness, the pace at which things are being rolled out for the drone segment, India wants to be the clear leader for drones globally. Now, that's not just an aspiration, but the pace at which we are rolling out is phenomenally great. And we all sitting here, we all are big consumers of e-commerce, right? Believe you me, in maybe less than 2 years, a drone will come to your building where you will collect your grocery. Not the delivery guy, but of course jobs will not be eaten. But these are the disruptions that we'll see in, in the next 2 to 3 years horizon, right? So this is at a unit level. Obviously at an aggregate level as a city, how do these unit level solutions get integrated to bring improved quality of life? Use cases like traffic decongestion as a service, air quality management as a service, right? These all are plethora of services which we'll see coming on at aggregate level at a city, in a smart city. Third is the civic services, right? Today, with all this technology being deployed on a vehicle in a city, what do we do with all the data that's coming? Now, these will open up a lot of new things which traditionally didn't exist. I'll name two in the interest of time, like, road quality management. Now, the vehicles that you and me drive today are equipped with sensitive enough GPS sensor or vibration sensor. They can accurately tell you plus minus 10% what's the quality of the road that you're driving. Now, believe you me, this point of information is so vital for the municipal authority. Today, how does municipal authority plan the roads? There are people deployed to do beat plans, to see the roads, then report back, then that gets analyzed 2 months down the line. Then the road planning authorities, plan that which one to attend first. Now, why do we need to do all this? The vehicles are today technologically enabled to give this data real time. All that somebody in a control center needs to see which is the redmost patch. And tomorrow, that work can be prioritized. Now, look at it. This is a very different way than how things have been traditional, right? But yes, these are the kind of use cases like road, maintenance services, planning in real time, and road usage charging. For example, we all are charged a road tax today flat. Right? Some people say I don't drive, but I pay the tax on my vehicle when I buy the vehicle. And some people are happy I drive every day because mine is a taxi and I'm paying the same amount. Now that's really unfair, right? And these are some of the smaller points, but these will become, real-time use cases with the advent of 5G. That's a little bit, Dinesh, in the interest of time.
Fair enough.
Yeah?
Good. In view of time, let me go to our last panelist. Mr. Sethi, you have already shared about the DIMTS work in various cities. My question to you is this data open for private players? The data which you're accumulating, number one. Number two, are you also working on a model like public-private partnership? Do you have that possibility? Okay, two questions to you.
So,
On the first question, open data policy is something which the government has published. So it's not something which is close to only government enterprises or something. Anyone, any citizen, company or an institution can access the data. There are obviously terms and conditions attached to it and how you use it, what is free of cost, what value adds can be done today, looking at technology available today. The standard will be progressive. It will not leave apart 5G. But as he also mentioned, road pricing is one of the use cases which is being talked about. So whether it is road tax, whether it is tolling, whether it is parking, any part of, road infrastructure charging, whether it is either the use of road or parking or roadside amenities, is being talked about, and the standard or the policy which comes up will look at that. 5G essentially is not in the policy per se, because policy 5G, the technology standard will be done separately. Currently it is the policy which is being worked out.
But in case of GNSS, you don't need 5G really. I mean, it should be technology neutral as far as policy is concerned. At the end of it, when you talk about 5G, you talk about big data. I mean, you really need that kind of latency or the data. So probably policy will not restrict the technology per se. And today you could roll it out on a 4G, and then tomorrow, if you want to migrate for a 5G as a use case, yes, it is feasible. Okay? Next question, please.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
sir.
So,
Introduce yourself, please.
Huh?
Introduce yourself.
Yeah.
First.
Can I ask more than one question?
First you ask one question, you will get a second chance if the time permits.
Okay.
One question you have.
All right. So, my name is Hani Charnalia, right? So, I have actually two questions, but anyways.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So, first question is pointed to Mr. Nilesh Kelkar, right? So, as we know that, we already have started the rollout, the spectrum auction for the NPN networks, right? The non-public networks. So, is there any strategy as Indus you have already created for using the NPN networks which are going to be coming? Because as a part of use case, what I can see is that it is not going to be a standalone non-public network, but a PLMN integrated, NPN would be more of, that I think would be more preferred, right? So is there any strategy you have already started working on in order for that?
So frankly, no, because Indus will remain to be a IP1 player.
Yeah.
We will not participate in spectrum. Now, big brothers like Mohan and Airtel.
Yeah, Mohan and the Airtel guys will talk
They do
about it.
participate, but yes, in this spectrum, the auction, there were few partners who got involved for NPA. A lot of transaction has happened on millimeter wave. A lot of focus was given by a lot of many players on secured network, kind of a dedicated network for a smaller hubs or a smart spaces. So since we don't have too much time, the smart city and 5G will subsequently lead to a development of smart spaces, the way I talked about, like sports and event-based kind of a thing. There, this role will be predominant.
Maybe I framed my question incorrectly. The point I wanted to make is that like Adani has already bought the spectrum, right? So they may obviously be coming to you for support in terms of rolling out that.
Okay, let me give you.
Hold a second. If you have something to add, otherwise I can share a little bit about it. And I have an audience sitting somewhere here. He is there. I had a discussion about this. But anyhow, you please go ahead first.
Yeah, so I think, private networks is definitely a big use case for 5G, right? In fact, one of the biggest use cases is private networks. It gives you flexibility to set up your own campuses, right? But yes, still very nascent, right? It's very nascent across. There are two ways. Obviously, as Indus Towers is at a scale and at a circle level or a state level kind of a coverage, right? But these are really small networks. Like we're talking about this hotel's own private network. Now, there are many players, who are SIs today, we call it as, right, in a traditional parlance. They can help set you up, right? You need not necessarily approach a Indus Tower or a tower company to.
No.
We
have
have
that set up.
started working for this in terms of a passive infrastructure requirement for private networks.
Yeah.
And
They will support anyhow. Wherever the
And one,
infrastructure is needed.
sorry,
No,
maybe
you're done. Sorry, I will update you on this question. Yeah, so he's one of my old colleague. He's working in a company who are working on this and he is aware of the 4 models which work is in progress, okay? Not concluded, work is in progress by the DOT.
Yeah, hello, gentlemen, my name is Ambesh. So, to his answer, actually the thing is that Government of India has given 4 options for CNPN, captive, private, captive, non-public network.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult
CNP.
term. Yeah, CNPN. And the CNPN says that it is going to be captive. It is not going to be talking to any PLMN, neither to internet, neither for any voice over NR also. And it is basically for the industry 4.0 to promote their OT application to go to IT application and set up a DCS, that is a NOC. For that their application, whatever is going by data, by moving data by either pen drive or like that, they will be able to go seamlessly to the IT department.
Can I request you, when you have an offline discussions, there are 4 options which DOT is working on, he will
Yeah,
explain it to you.
I will
One
give
more
you 4
question,
options.
one last question, please.
I have got a question.
Okay, you will get one more, okay, please sir.
My name is Manish Agarwal. I am working as a chartered engineer and based out of Gurgaon. So my question is that we are talking about the intelligent mobility. So in that context, like we are talking of public transport. So in Delhi NCR, like how can public transport be smart public transport? Because last mile connectivity is not there. Like whenever we have to go, I have to travel in Delhi, I use metro. But metro is going covering all Delhi NCR, all the cities.
Got it, sir.
But the last mile connectivity is not there, and after the lockdown, even the metro feeder services, buses have stopped. So I want that we use Google Map to see the route. So Google Map should also throughout, if I want to use public transport, it should give me the option that this is the option from this point to this point you have to travel, and this is the public transport.
But this is
metro cum bus.
Sir, Google is giving this option, but anyhow, hold up, Google gives this option for metro and buses as well. But let's talk about, you want to share something about Delhi? Hello?
It is not very specific. It is not.
Let's hear from out. He has implemented a solution.
So, if you use Delhi One app, you get all the options. You will get
Delhi-
Delhi One app.
Delhi One app.
Yeah. So the earlier name was Pucho.
Pucho. P-U-C-H-O. Pucho.
And it gives you all the options. You will be able to see the nearest auto standing. You can call that auto. It's not an Ola auto for booking.
NCR,
Yeah, it is for Delhi NCR.
It covers Delhi.
Only Delhi.
Gurgaon.
No, sorry.
Gurgaon is not just because of jurisdiction. It's not there.
because Delhi Metro is going all over NCR.
Yes, but that's Delhi Metro. Because Delhi One app is Delhi government app. Gurugram, there is a app, Gurugram One app, which is already covering buses. They will introduce, the e-rickshaws, which are being introduced for last mile connectivity. Delhi government, if you look at Delhi, the metro feeder buses are being discontinued, but there is enough public transport available and all route information and with real-time ETA. Delhi government is giving status of seating as well. So you know which the next bus might not have seating available, but the next to next bus will have seating available. So
You are correct, sir. Actually, because I live in Gurgaon, actually in the NCR towns except Delhi, this last mile connectivity problem is there. And
That's a policy problem. See, if you look at MOUD or
Okay, we got it.
NCRPB.
Sir, I'll give you a chance.
NCRPB
He will not leave until
Thank
he
you,
talk to you.
thank you.
No, sir, I'm sorry. If you have any specific questions to any of the panelists, talk to him offline, because we have to leave this venue in few minutes. Hence, we are forced to close this session now. But please, you have a question, you know the person who knows it, hold them here. They will not go out, or even if they go out, you go out with them. But please try to find out an answer. Otherwise, please send it to the organizer and we will contact the panelist. So with that, thank you very much. Please give them a good round of applause, please. Thank you. And thank you very much, all audience. Thank you, Bharat Exhibitions. Over to you.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, one more round of applause for our wonderful moderator also. And it was a very interesting, interactive session with such eminent panelists on the panel. And before we close the proceedings, ladies and gentlemen, I have a small announcement that outside at the Force Point exhibition stall, They have arranged some Kahoot games which you can play and win some goodies. So you can, when you move out, it is on the right hand side, you can play the games and win some nice prizes from their stall. And I would now request Mr. Dinesh Chand Sharma, our moderator, to do the honors to present mementos to all our eminent speakers. We begin with Sri Sudhendu J. Sinha, Advisor, Infrastructure, Connectivity and Electric Mobility, Niti Aayog. Thank you very much indeed, sir, for those valuable inputs we had from you. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Mr. Sinha. And to Mr. Alok Sethi, General Manager, Transportation Technology Solutions, DIMS. Thank you, sir. That was very helpful, handy information we had from in the end about the Delhi One app and the Gurgaon One app. To Dr. Sumit Chaudhary, he is left. To Mr. Nilesh Kelkar. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much indeed. To Mr. Mohan Raju, Vice President and Business Head, Smart Mobility Geo Platforms. Thank you, sir. And to Dr. Chinmay Hegde. He is Managing Director, Astricos Consulting Private Limited. And may I request Mr. Sinha from Niti Aayog to kindly do the honors of presenting a memento to our moderator. And that really calls for a round of applause. And ladies and gentlemen, with that we close the proceedings of the conference on Smart Cities and Intelligent Mobility India 2022. Once again taking this opportunity to thank all our eminent panelists, speakers, all our distinguished dignitaries, all our participants, our exhibitors and our sponsors and partners for extending their wholehearted support to us in organizing this event, which was largely successful. And thank you to each one of you. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to announce that the evening tea is being served in the Allure Hall. Please join us for a cup of tea in Allure Hall before you leave the venue. And once again, thanking all our sponsors and partners for extending their wholehearted support in organizing this successful event. And please do not forget to participate in the Force Point games at their stall outside and win some exciting goodies and prizes from that stall. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, once again. Have a wonderful day ahead. Safe journey home, good evening and namaskar.